Hi everyone, and welcome back. In our previous episode, we have built identities in both on-prem and in the cloud. We accessed on-prem resources as well as the cloud resources with using two separate identities. In today's episode, we will build a bridge between on-prem and the cloud world so that we no longer have two sets of identities and credentials we need to manage, but we manage everything from one pane of glass. So let's get started. We start with installing the Connect Sync engine, and we do this by navigating to the Entra portal, download the software, and start installing it. In this process, we will configure the synchronization engine, and we will allow only certain user objects to synchronize from on-premises to the cloud. So the tool will take its time to install all the prerequisites, but we're gonna fast forward a bit through this installation process. There are two options. We can do an express installation, so a very quick one, or one where we define how the configuration looks like, and this is what we're gonna do. We install all the required components and we fast forward through this. And then we enable password hash synchronization. The very first step in here is to connect to the cloud. So provide the user credentials for the cloud account, which allows us to connect the AAD Connect server with Entra. As you can see, for this user, I already have multi-factor authentication configured, of course. And the next step is to connect with Active Directory. So there are two connectors which are being configured in the synchronization engine, one that talks to the cloud, the other that talks to the on-prem environment, and this is precisely what we're doing here. Now that we connected with the two worlds, we need to determine how to map the user attributes. So user principal name is the username that will be used for the user in both on-prem and in the cloud. And over here, we only want to synchronize certain organizational units. We don't want to synchronize everything, but only the departments which are of interest for us. My user resides in the user's organizational unit in the IT department, so we want to synchronize that. And we want to synchronize users and groups from both the marketing and the HR department. In both of these, we have users, so Elisa and Robert in marketing, and within the HR, we have Svarna. But for now, I want to leave out of the sync scope the HR department, and we will see later why. Moving on, we'll leave the source anchor to be chosen by the synchronization tool. So this will be the MSDS consistency GUID in on-prem, which is going to be mapped to the immutable ID in Entra. Moving forward, we stick with the defaults. We only want to synchronize the hash of the password. So we click next on this page. And because I have ticked the enable single sign-on box, I need to provide my credentials for this to be properly configured in the background as well. You can see that I had a domain previously configured, showing in warning, so that's going to be removed in this process and the new one will be configured. Fast forward through the installation, we start the synchronization process. We want to see the tool in action. So how does it provision the users from on-prem to the cloud? Well, the setup is done, and let's launch the synchronization engine to see how everything looks like. On the operations tab, we see the synchronization cycle. It starts with importing objects from AD. It's gonna be sending all them to its database, which is called Metaverse. And lastly, is going to export the objects to the cloud. We can see, well, my user that is being provisioned, and this is going to be matching the existing cloud user, and it's going to be populating a source anchor for it, as well as the other users which do not exist in the cloud, so they will be provisioned from on-prem. Going back to the drawing board, we have my user which existed as one identity in Active Directory, another one in the cloud. So now what we have done with this process was to build a bridge which basically allows Active Directory to become the source of authority for all these users. And through this process, so with the help of the Entra Connect tool, we are able to match these identities through a process called soft match, as well as to provision new users which did not exist before in the cloud, but now with the help of Entra Connect, we're able to provision them from Active Directory. Where's the Svarna user? Well, let's see what happened. Let's see why this user does not exist in Entra. So we can see Alex, Elisa, and Robert that are now on-prem sync enabled. So it shows that they come from Active Directory. However, our user Svarna is not. Why does this happen? Because we have left that organizational unit outside of the sync scope. So let's change this. We connect to the configuration engine of AAD Connect, and we include this particular organizational unit in the sync scope. So as we can see, the IT and the marketing departments, some of the OUs within these departments are within the sync scope. So that's why the user Alex and Elisa and Robert are synchronized, and Svarna is not, because this organizational unit is not part of the sync scope. So let's do exactly that. So let's include this OU in the sync scope. Once we do this, the tool will tell us that we need basically to perform a full synchronization for this change to be taken into account. So we'll do exactly that by triggering an initial sync, so a full synchronization, which basically means importing all the attributes that were imported before together with the new ones, so that we provision everything properly to the cloud. We see that we have various adds, so the organizational units in question and my user Svarna. And we can see as well that this is now exported to the cloud. So AAD Connect tells us this, or Entra Connect confirms this. Let's see this in the browser as well. We refresh the page and we can see that the user has been populated in our tenant. The user is correctly provisioned from Active Directory to Entra. And now Active Directory is the source of truth for my identities. Because we have a bridge between the on-premises environment and the cloud, we can manage the identities from one pane of glass, as well as their permissions and resetting their passwords, for example. In our next episode, we will configure multi-factor authenticator as well as passkeys. I hope you're curious to hear more about it. Thank you for joining today's episode. And remember, when it comes to Azure, you always got your brother in the clouds. See you next time.